Welcome, CultureCast viewers. My name is Dustin Homan. I am a 4-H youth development educator with Purdue University Extension in Marion County, Indiana. And I want to thank you for joining us again for another episode of CultureCast. Our last episode, we traveled to Bangladesh, and this episode, we're not going too far from there. We'll be heading to the country of Nepal. My guest today is Laura Davis. Laura, welcome.
Thank you, Dustin.
I really appreciate you joining us. Laura was telling us earlier today, we're all Zooming right now, and she had to try 3 different locations to get a good connection. So she is committed and excited about this, as am I. So Laura, tell the viewers a little bit about yourself.
All right. I was raised in Southeast Ohio. I'm from a town called McConnelsville. It's about 30 miles north of Marietta, Ohio, so not far from West Virginia. We grew up in a very small town, so there's one high school in my whole county, one school district. We graduated 120 students. I was very involved with 4-H and FFA growing up, really loved sports, and I took a big risk and went to Ohio State. One of the big factors of me going through Ohio State was because it was a land grant and my connections through 4-H and FFA. I really felt at home, and me joining the the agricultural college really made me feel at place at Ohio State, even though they have 60,000 students. I have interned with ADM in Cargill, and I was an Ohio Soybean Council ambassador, and I've had various jobs here and there. I also worked for the Ohio State Athletic Department, so it was always fun to get my hands dirty and be able to help out grounds and maintenance of things. And then somehow I kind of fell into the Peace Corps. It would have been the summer of 2018, and I was interning with a really great company, but I kind of had an itch to do more, and I kind of applied on a whim. Specifically, I got an email for a food security volunteer in Nepal for being high need. And I was actually on a study abroad in the Czech Republic through the College of Food and Agricultural and Environmental Sciences. And I remember looking at my advisor and I said, I'm going to do this. And she was like, Laura, you're crazy. Like you're on this high of traveling and like you're having a lot of fun, but like that's a huge commitment. And I said, I'm going to do this. And so I applied in July. I got an interview, graduated that December, and left in January. So
Laura, I appreciate you sharing that story. For a lot of our viewers, I think it can be hard to imagine coming from a small community and ended up traveling the world. So when you were young, were you in 4-H and FFA?
I was, and I think kind of this niche to travel and experience new things and new people probably started with 4-H camp. I mean, when you're 8 or 9 years old and you leave home for the first time and it's really scary. And then I did various state 4-H camps and kind of left the area. And then I also did Citizens Washington Focus and went to DC. And I always felt like a small fish in a big pond. And I liked that feeling. And so that's why I really stayed committed to 4-H, and I found that drive.
And you graduated from Ohio State recently. Tell us what your degree was in.
I did. So my degree is in agribusiness. My bachelor's of science is in agribusiness and applied economics. And then I have a global option specialization or certificate. And then I kind of really fell in love with marketing. I was in a group or organization called NAMA, and National Agri-Marketing Association. And it was a market research team. I did that for 3 years. And then I have a minor in agricultural communications and a minor in leadership studies.
Thank you. Thanks, Laura. I appreciate you sharing that story. Like I said, I think it's important for our viewers to know that, a lot of the people that we feature that have traveled abroad, it's not that, their family was some global politician and they've been all over the world. This is something that can be open and available to anyone if they're willing to take a little bit of a leap of faith. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I want to dig into your photos, because you have some incredible photos and stories to tell us about your time as a Peace Corps volunteer. First of all, Nepal is a country in Asia. You can see that highlighted in the slide, and it's nestled between India and China near the Himalayan mountains. And you'll see some of that beautiful geography in Laura's photos. The last things I want to mention, Nepal has a population of just over 30 million, which if it were a U.S. state would make it the second most populous state in the U.S. And geography-wise, it's about the size of the state of New York. They just recently came through a war in the country that ended in 2006. So there has been some upheaval in the country, but hopefully things are getting a little bit back to normal. And Laura's going to share with us some of the stuff that's currently going on there as well. So I did find it interesting, Laura, when I was doing a little research, that Nepal has actually declared its independence even before the U.S. did in 1768. So that was something I did not know. But anyway, that's the history geek in me. Let's get into your photos. Laura, first of all, just tell us, why Nepal?
Like I said, I just kind of fell into the mountains in a way. So with me being from Appalachia, Ohio, I've always kind of had a love for hills and the rolling hills and the mountains. And so when I saw this idea of Mount Everest and these snow caps and these people, I really did some research on the country and kind of the relationships they share. And another step of faith, or something I had to take courage in, was stepping away from my comfort and Christianity. So always being surrounded with something, it's easy to just make it happen naturally. So learning Hinduism just gave me a deeper appreciation for my culture and my religion. But the people, there was just a beauty in the color of the research I was doing, the music. I still listen to the music. I'm losing my Nepali, but I still listen to the Nepali music, and the bright colors and the rich culture, and it felt right.
So the photo we're looking at here, tell us what we see in the foreground and the background.
Okay, so there's a funny story behind that, but I'll try to keep this short and sweet. I had a friend who, during evacuation, he needed his stuff. So I got a private Jeep and I was heading to his village. And in between our village was about, I think, 3 to 4 hours of a private Jeep ride. And he was my closest volunteer. And so I was just trying to figure out how to get through these mountains to his village. And so there's a guy standing in the road. These are the roads we traveled, and up and down mountains, through valleys, through rivers. And you can just see the gravel roads and the different houses through here. And it was something about this moment with the sun and trying to find peace with the evacuation that I just always have appreciated this photo.
So tell us a little bit about what you did as a Peace Corps volunteer in Nepal.
Okay, so my technical title was a nutrition-sensitive food security volunteer. A big idea with these Asiatic countries is rice is still a vital part of their diet, and a part of it is based in the religion because it has a lot of religious symbolism, and they've always had it. And here recently, you're seeing people malnourished and they're becoming overweight, or maybe they're not getting enough nutrients. So behavior training and asset-based community development is what we really worked on. So this photo here, this is one of the groups that I was working with. I was working with an NGO called Seed Tree. They're actually funded through the United States, and we're working with polybags right here. And we planted, I think, roughly 3,000 seedlings. And specifically to this picture, we're planting berries and trees. So berries is something they've never been familiarized with. Maybe wild jungle berries, but a few times I was able to introduce strawberries to them. And so I was trying to plant strawberries from seeds and cuttings, but I think we were working with raspberries in this photo.
Tell us about your stance here, Laura.
Nepalis in their culture, they don't really believe in sitting on the ground. And I don't know if it's the American in me, but some days it just feels nice to just sit crisscross applesauce in the grass. So they always used to tell me that if I touched my bottom to the ground that I would get really sick the next day. So you can see where I'm squatting. You just squat. I don't know if it's the relationship to their ground or how they're squatting toilets, or you learn to squat, and like you eat and you're squatting, you're eating with your hands and you're squatting. They don't sit on the ground.
They have to have some like serious leg muscles then, I would think. And you called this, what, the Nepali squat? Is that what you mentioned earlier?
The Nepali squat.
Nepali squat. Well, I appreciate you sharing that. It's just unique and different compared
Of
to
course.
our culture. So yeah, we'll go through
I actually catch myself doing it now.
reminiscing old times.
Yeah, habit.
Laura, we're going to move through some more photos talking about specifically your work there. So tell us what we see here.
All right, so this is my farmers group, and my counterpart is standing in the yellow on the left. She's holding the sign. And I identified her as a strong leader in my community, and she was my president of my group. And we met once a month, and I think the dues were equivalent to like $1 or $2 US. And it's actually funded through the Nepali government. And this picture is us receiving seeds, and they're off-season vegetables. So my role was kind of as like an extension agent or an agricultural technician. So you see 30 ladies here with seeds, and then I would go through and help them with what they were growing, seeing what we could improve. And then another project we did through my farmers group was mushroom seeds. So I taught about 30 to 40 farmers to grow mushrooms. And then also another big thing I need to highlight with this photo is, if you look, probably 80 to 90% of the people in the photo are women. And so in the Nepali work culture and the home life, it's all women. So the men go abroad, the men go overseas to the Middle East or different countries and work for a pretty low wage, but then they send the money back to the women. So the women are the farmers, the women are sometimes the teachers, and the women are really the driving force of their lives. Tell
us about this photo, Laura.
So this is one of my visions and one of the things that I was really excited about. Another thing with my farmers group is I was writing a grant through USAID, and then my next grant was going to be this building right here. I kind of have a little bit of an emotional attachment to this building. So my host mother used to teach here, I think 10 to 15 years ago, and everyone knows my host mother is just this strong, witty woman, a community leader. And she was my driving force. So a thing with the Peace Corps you hear about is you go to these countries, but what makes you stay? And everyone you talk to will always say it's the people. And so she kind of introduced me to this building, and it's just this old rundown building. You can see the paint, you can see the broken windows. And to me, this was an opportunity. This was an asset that was already sitting in my village. And so the vision I saw was I was going to create an agricultural resources center. So I was going to have different assets and things that farmers could use to make their lives more convenient. So a rototiller, a chainsaw, I could keep going on. And it was also going to be a seed saving bank. So with the different off-season vegetables and fruits, we seed save, because when you're 8 to 10 hours from a big city, it's kind of hard to just run in for the day and get the seeds you need. So we were teaching seed saving too. And then the kids in the photo. So while I was working on kind of cleaning it up, I was not using the kids, but I made fun with the kids, because we would clean it up for 15, 20 minutes, whatever the attention span lasted that day. And then we would play games in there. So one of the things I was able to do was I created chalkboard paint with like baking soda and black paint, and it worked. And so we do different English games and we do drawings. And so every Saturday they'd be like, Bati, where are you? Come play. My name was Bati. That's a funny story. So Bati actually means lamp. And so whenever I would introduce myself, like, hi, my name's Bati, people would just think it was the funniest thing. And my supervisor gave me that name. In Hinduism, they say that people name you based on what they see in you. And so the slang of Bati means light, but the technical term means lamp. So I was introducing myself like, hey, my name's Lamp.
But it sounds like you mentioned people laughed immediately, and it was a way for you to connect to that culture. Did you have to learn the language, or did they understand some English?
Oh, there was not a lot of English. I would say that in other languages, there's a lot of English terms with the westernization and the colonialism of how the world's developed. But we had 2 to 3 months of training in the capital of Kathmandu, and we worked on learning the language.
So you've talked a little bit about the work that you've done there. I'm interested to know what personal life was like for you as well. So tell us about this photo.
You said personal life, and I kind of laugh because there's not a lot of personal life or independence in these developing countries because your sole purpose is survival. And when you're just trying to survive and take care of yourself, your family comes first. And so, I mean, there wasn't really alone time unless I was like hiding in the jungle or like locked myself in my room. But they really take pride in their connections and their relationships. In this picture right here, this is my home. And what we see right in front of us with the corn stalks and maybe old wood, that's our compost pile. That was another project that the Peace Corp framework was working on. But the building to the left is my home. So it was stone, and then stone kind of plastered with mud and sand and to stick together. And then the next photo will be my room, and I'll talk a little bit more about the flooring. So this is my room. I made it personal to myself. I hung my clothes, and then there's a picture of my family on the back side of the wall. And then there's some prayer flags, which is a part of the rich culture in Nepal. And it is Buddhism. So whenever you trek or hike in Nepal, you're going to find prayer flags everywhere. And then the floors, so we saw the outside of my home where it was stone. So we can see the inside where it is kind of plastered. And like a big thing is in Hinduism is the cow is a god. So they would take the cow feces and kind of wipe it on the walls and floors to make the places holy. But if you know anything about cow feces, it's a polymer, it's a sticking agent, so it kept the dust down. But that's just something I kind of normalized and got used to eventually.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting you say that you normalize it, because when you first said that, my initial reaction is, oh, but to them, it's a natural material that has a function and a purpose, and it made sense.
Yeah.
I want to go back. I accidentally swapped some of our photos here, but this was a photo that you were very excited about. So tell us about this photo.
Yes. This little boy's name is Roshan, and I was working on teaching him English. And I mean, I have video after video of him just like saying things that I've taught him. One of the things that just really like fills my cup is I taught him how to say I love you. And so he would be however many terraces away, and I would be like, Roshan Bamboo, where are you? I love you. And then he would scream it. He was 3 years old. But he would have been my nephew to my host family. Okay. And one of the big things in Hinduism and these Asiatic cultures is that they want boys. So he has 3 older sisters, and his mom's older. And his sisters are, I think they were 10, 18, and 21. And they kept having kids until they finally had him. And his personality and everything about him, he was my driving force a lot of days just to give these kids hope. But this picture, you can see his face. He's just so excited. And in his right hand, were sweet potatoes. I was able to get cuttings. And if you guys know about growing sweet potatoes, you can take one cutting and kind of grow 30 more. And with that, we had about 30 to 40 farmers who have never seen sweet potatoes who were able to love and try sweet potatoes. And you can see it in his face, the sweet flavor, whereas they're used to potatoes, rice, and lentils. And so just him eating the sweet potato is one of my favorite photos.
Yeah, and like you said, just so much joy out of a sweet potato.
Yeah.
That I can understand how this would be your driving force.
Yeah.
So I think they have you talked about colors at the beginning. We see some of that here. So tell us a little bit about some of the attire and some of the ceremonies and events that you got to go to while you were there.
Yeah, so this is my counterpart, the president of my farmers group. We had that fun relationship. We were actually on our way to a festival called Tej, and this festival is one festival in Hinduism that's all about the women. And they say it's for the single ladies, and I have videos, but you dance for your future husband. So they dress like what I'm wearing is actually gold. They love gold, and some lady let me borrow her gold because I had to look beautiful for my future husband.
Wow.
Something specific to the spirituality and connection of the gods in Hinduism. So I'm wearing a sari right there, and it's a blouse, and then it has the long piece of fabric that you wrap around you. And I went and danced with my future husband that day in front of like 60 Nepali women.
Did you have fun at least?
I did. So
Good.
I actually did not enjoy dancing until I was a Peace Corps volunteer. And in moments that I was uncomfortable, I taught myself that you can learn to love anything. And now I love dancing. So
Good.
you really have to be present and intentional, and you'll learn to love where you're at.
And Laura, I should have asked you this earlier. How long were you in Nepal?
I was in Nepal for 14 months, and before COVID and the evacuation, I was supposed to have another 13 months.
Okay, so you're about halfway through then. I'm interested in this photo. Describe for us what's happening.
So this is Desai. This is in October, November, depending on the lunar year, the calendar year. And you go to each house, very family-oriented cultural event, and they give you blessings. So what's on my forehead is tika. And I go to each house and they give me blessings. And it was so funny because they all said something along the lines of, "We hope you find your Nepali husband and you're prosperous and you stay with us forever." And so this is one of the families I was at, and just a fun little selfie that I kept.
Tell us a little bit about some of the people that you interacted with and through this photo.
So I guess I will start with the elder generation, of course, because this is a grandmother or a great-grandmother. And you can see it in her wrinkles and her face and her lack of teeth, that the Nepali lifestyle and kind of the life she's been dealt has really aged her. But so the women start to have kids when they're about 17. The law right now is 20 to 21, but with the culture, they get married off pretty young. There are a lot of arranged marriages. And then you wake up at 6 a.m., you work the ground till about 9 p.m. 2 meals a day, you eat around 9 a.m. and 7 p.m., the rice and lentils. And the women do all the work. The women clean, cook. They're the ones in the fields. Occasionally you'll get some men that lead some projects, but a lot of them are abroad. And this lady, she's probably, if I remember correctly, she was about 80. And she lived about an hour and a half walk from the nearest road that a bus comes. One day I was feeling spontaneous and I wanted to see how high in my mountain I could climb. And I found this village. And at the time, lollygrass was blooming, which is what we know as rhododendron. And you can see that beautiful flower she's holding in her hand. It's something specific and rich to the Nepali culture. And like me being able to pick that flower and give it to her was a blessing to her.
This is such a gorgeous photo, Laura. And I feel like I understand like part of her story just from her facial expression. So I'm really glad that you shared this. I'm going to skip ahead. I want to hit this architecture photo real quick. Tell the viewers what they're looking at here.
So this is the Kathmandu Valley. This is a large temple in Buddhism. Specifically, I forget the temple, but you can see the beauty of the culture, and you see the prayer flags that I was talking about earlier coming off. This is a very large attraction in Kathmandu. It's not open to the general public. In Hinduism, a lot of the temples you will go inside.
Laura, we've got just a couple minutes left, and I could kind of hear in your voice that you were sad to leave the community, unfortunately, with the global pandemic that occurred with COVID-19. So, I mean, tell us a little bit about how you're feeling now. And I know this photo was kind of your send-off. So how are you doing?
So this photo, I remember seeing the post from the Peace Corps director. And at the time, I didn't know how to take it. So I had received my grant money on a Friday to start my beehives in my village, and I got evacuated on Monday. It was just a lot to take in. A big thing with this life I chose is you really had to be present and intentional. You had to love everything about what you were around, because you learned to just be so uncomfortable, but that was a growth experience. That was a challenge. It was an opportunity. So I got a phone call from one of my friends, and I remember just being in denial. I was yelling. I was like, no, they're not taking me. You don't understand. I've worked for 4 months on this grant. Like, these are my people. This is my home. And So I wanted to do something with my community because they learned to love me. They gave so much to me. And what I did was I kind of had a feast. I bought a goat and we ate it that night during my last night. And this is kind of the going away ceremony we had. So they have tika on my head and then they have the marigolds around my neck. And this is my host mom putting it around my neck. And then leaving. So Nepalis don't really show emotion. Like I was saying, how they're in survival, fight or flight. You've got to do what you got to do to move forward, which means you're not always processing your emotions. I think I had 3 days in my village before I had to get evacuated. And I would go to people's house and visit them and they would just start crying. And I just kept saying to them, we'll cry on the last day. We'll cry on the last day. We need to rejoice. Like we need to just be joyful of like having these relationships and these connections. And so the last day they all came to my house. It was like 6 a.m. We were all just crying. But it was a beautiful moment because I was able to have my time there. Time was never my friend, but I felt like I was able to make a difference in their lives.
Well, Laura, we have run out of time and you had many photos we did not get a chance to get to, but I want to thank you especially for telling your story from the heart and just bringing these photos to life. So thank you for being our guest today. And I have now added this country to my bucket list because of you. So again,
you have to go.
Absolutely. Thank you. And to our viewers, thank you for tuning in. We hope that you'll join us next month as we explore another wonderful place in this big, beautiful world that we live in.